Citizens of the Month, Mrs. Cavaco.
Yes, so we have two Citizens of the Month. The first one is Nate Buchanan. And for folks that don't know or didn't know, Nate Buchanan was the person that was placing all the bicycles around town, and people would find him. It was like a little treasure hunt, but it brought quite a bit of joy, to our residents. It was around Christmas time, so it was really great, and our residents really enjoyed it. And he was able to gift quite a few of those bicycles. I don't see him here, and I don't know if he's here, Chris, but he certainly is much deserving of this because it was a wonderful act of kindness for our community.
Kristen Buchanan's here. I don't know if she's here to accept it.
Hi. So
Hi.
Nate's with my daughter. So he was logged on for a bit, but had to log off.
Okay. So Kristen, this is for Nate, and the board can't thank him enough for such an incredible amount of kindness that he showed to our residents, and we'll make sure that it gets to you. And Chris will frame it and put it in a nice folder and stuff for you. But please send our appreciation to Nate.
I will, and it's thanks to the whole Manomet community for sure that came together to do this.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
So thank you.
You're very welcome. And the next one is Jeff Cohen. And what can we not say about Jeff Cohen and his generosity? One of the things, the reason why he was nominated for this time was, and I'm sorry I'm turning my head, but my screen is sideways. So it was in recognition for purchasing some Chromebooks for a local family with school-age children who needed them. I think we all know that Jeff it really provides quite a bit to the community. His Halloween party is usually given to a family in need. So Jeff, what can you say? Thank you so much for everything that you do for the community, and this board really appreciates it. And I'm sure you will continue on your path from the Jeff Cohen Foundation. So it's much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you. Pardon the name, Chelsea. I can't figure out how to change the name.
Well, you look good as a Chelsea, so, stick with that.
All right, we'll go with that. Hey, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jeff. Good job.
Oh, my pleasure.
We'll
it's funny, the one thing I don't post on Facebook, I get notarized. I get noticed for. That's so funny.
Well, the Halloween parties, what you did this year was great for that family. So
yeah, that really worked out good.
Good job.
Yeah, it exceeded all our expectations. No idea we're going to raise 38,000.
That's wonderful.
We did 16,000 a year before. I would have been happy with 20.
Yeah, and you know what, Jeff? We'll be sure that Chris gets this out to you. So
thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
No problem. All right, do I sign off now?
Sure.
Or do I kinda...
Sure. Take care.
All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, public hearing for Black Lantern. In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held remotely on Tuesday, January 4th, 2021 at 6:05 p.m. to consider the application for a new annual all alcohol restaurant license from SMG Corp. Incorporated, doing business as Black Lantern Tavern, 1 Greenside Way, Plymouth, signed Golson manager. Description of the premises is as follows: 3,266 square feet, ground floor comprised of main dining area, bar, kitchen, waiting area, and wheelchair accessible bathrooms, large patio and deck in front of the building. I now declare this hearing open. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should plan to attend this meeting naturally. So we're now open, and who is the applicant in? Lee?
Yes, we have Mr. Gulson.
Okay.
You're muted.
Mr. Galston, you're muted.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening,
Well,
Good evening and Happy New Year.
and to you. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here with your restaurant? And I believe
Sure.
it's in Red Brook, correct?
Sure. I'm a little nervous. I apologize.
Don't be nervous. We're not the planning board. That's a joke.
As you stated, my name is Sahin Galson, and my wife Martina and I have been part of Plymouth since 1995. And we have 3 kids born and raised in Plymouth. We all love living and being part of Plymouth. And we have operated pizza restaurant in Sagamore Beach and Bourne for 9 years, and a concession stand at Scusset Beach for 7 years. And our contract is still open with state of Massachusetts on that. And I have worked 20 years in restaurant industry, front of the house, back of the house. So we'd like to put our experience into our own business and serve the community in this part of the town. Not only for Red Brook, also as well as surrounding neighborhoods as well.
Okay. I would ask at this time, does anybody in the audience, Chris, is willing to speak in favor of the application?
Not that I know of.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition of the application?
Also, not that I know of.
I think I saw her hand up, Chris.
Yeah, Joe, Mr.
Oh.
Hutchinson.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't speak enthusiastically enough about the opening of this restaurant. So I just wanted to put that in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions or comments. Mr. Bledsoe?
Hey, Mr. Gulson,
Yes,
what type of fare would you have in the restaurant? What type of menu? Is it going to be a pizza type pub menu? Or?
No, it will be a family style American bar and grill,
Okay.
as well as a favorite fares of the
Right.
restaurants.
Well, I agree with Mr. Hutchinson. He should be enthusiastic because they need businesses down there in Red Brook to create that village. The village down there, similar to what Pine Hills has done over the years. They got a village up there, which is great for all the residents. So, and that Red Brook is a great development. I know several people who live there, and there's other neighborhoods nearby. And my cousin just moved into a neighborhood. I was there actually last night, and I couldn't believe the homes over there, beautiful neighborhoods, but they don't have, there's nothing down there for them right now. So I think you'll be a big hit down there. I really do. So I wish you well. Are you looking to do entertainment or just keep strictly food? I know you have a bar.
As of now, we're just strictly food.
Yeah.
However, it may change as the community needs.
Well, I know that the community down there does a lot of events. They have an event
Correct.
coordinator who does a great job. So there might
We
be
would
some
like to
fun.
take part in that.
There might be some fun things. And the guy, the gentleman that has the scone, the coffee shop,
Yes,
he does a great job.
fantastic job.
In fact, when I was campaigning, I was his first customer. My group, we had a little meet and greet. That's a true story. But listen, I wish you well. We need businesses like that down there, and I hope that you attract other businesses to come into that beautiful neighborhood of Red Brook. So good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll now declare this hearing closed and bring it to the board for a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
Second,
Motion
Second.
approved. Do I have a second?
second.
Second by Mrs. Kavako. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Happy New Year and good luck.
Thank you.
Good
Good
luck.
luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're gonna move on to the town manager's search, and I believe we're gonna turn it over to Bernie, who will then in turn, I believe, turn it over to the chairman, but Bernie, welcome. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you and the rest of the board and everyone watching. If I just could summarize sort of where we are, and then I'll quickly turn it over to the chair of the screening committee that was appointed by the board to give the board's or the screening committee's report. We started this process back in I think in earnest back in October after receiving an award from the town, from the board, selecting Community Paradigm to do this search process. We spent quite a bit of time talking to board members, talking to department heads, gathering information to go out and do this recruitment. During the month of November, we received approximately 25 applications or resumes and application for the position of town manager, which is pretty average for a search of this type. I think our rule of thumb is generally that we see about a third of each of our searches, the candidates, each of our searches be, relatively qualified for the position in varying degrees. The screening committee that you appointed was an excellent committee to work with in reviewing those resumes. They identified the candidates that they felt were the most qualified and chose those to interview. We chose 7 people to interview. And Leighton Price, the chair, may repeat some of this, but the committee identified those 7. We scheduled those interviews and tried to conduct those over 2 days. One applicant actually withdrew during that process and was not interviewed, but the committee proceeded to interview 6 candidates and was able to focus in on a number of candidates that they felt were worthy of moving forward. And I'll let Leighton describe some of that in more detail. We did have a number of withdrawals, which is unfortunately becoming somewhat commonplace in, I think, in all sectors, but obviously we know the municipal sector the most, which led the committee to think about how they wanted to proceed, and they'll make that report to you tonight. I think that at this point I'll turn it over to Leighton to give his report from the committee, and then we can discuss next steps moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
From the beginning, our objective was to have at least 3 candidates that we could bring forward to the selectmen for consideration. As Bernie indicated, we screened 25 applicants. We narrowed it down to 7 that we wanted to interview. We lost 1 from a withdrawal, and after interviewing the rest, we voted unanimously on 3 of the candidates that we thought were fully qualified to become a town manager in the town of Plymouth. In the course of the next couple of weeks, 2 of those candidates that we had selected chose to withdraw. So we had only 1 of the people that we had unanimously selected that was still on the list, and that was a fully qualified person. We had indicated that there was an alternate that we would move forward if we lost 1 of the candidates, but we still wanted to have 3 candidates that we could talk to the selectmen about. Given the way that this has worked out, we decided to have a meeting yesterday, and after considerable discussion of this matter, the selection committee decided to recommend that the selectmen should go back out and re-advertise the position. We did not feel that there were a sufficient number of qualified candidates to be able to put forward names to the Board of Selectmen. And that is the extent of my report.
Okay.
I think we'd be, I think the committee members that are here and myself would be happy to answer any questions about the process and next steps.
Any questions from the board to the committee? Mr. Helm?
Muted?
Let me unmute. To make sure that we all have this right.
No.
Okay. You had 4 candidates that you unanimously agreed.
We had 3 candidates that we unanimously agreed on.
Okay. 2 of them dropped
And
out.
2 of them dropped out. So we only had 1 remaining candidate that we had unanimously agreed on.
Did the 2 candidates who dropped out give you a reason why they dropped out?
Bernie has to address that.
Yeah, I spoke with both of the candidates. I spoke with all 3 of the candidates that withdrew. There were a variety of reasons. I think that one chose to, it would have been a move to a new state and sort of trying to understand what was happening generally with regards to the position, and the move across country, found that it just wasn't something that she wanted to pursue at this time. Another candidate determined that she felt that it was more advantageous to stay in her current position, which she was quite stable and quite happy to continue to work on a number of projects there. And another candidate identified some personal reasons why he did not feel it was appropriate at this time for him to stay in the search.
Okay. Given that we had, I'm going to guess what would be considered a good response to our initial, going out, our request, our hiring request. What makes the committee think that we're going to get people who are better than these if they hadn't already applied?
If I may, I think the committee probably wants to speak to this themselves, but I think the hope of the committee was that circumstances may have changed. Obviously, things are always shifting, and there may be people that weren't interested back in October, November that may be interested now. Other than that, there's not much that has changed with regards to the town, with regards to the position itself. So it would be the hope that there may be more people out there now that are looking.
Would any of the other committee members like to weigh in on my question? Because I have one more follow-up question after that.
I'll address it very briefly. As Bernie has indicated, this is a landscape that is constantly shifting. We were made aware, for example, of one potential candidate, someone who missed our initial deadline by a few days, which the committee did not consider, who I believe, based on their qualifications, would have at least garnered an interview, given the various references on the resume and their experience. So we know that there's at least somebody out there. The question as to what's going on in Plymouth and whether or not that will or will not affect people, I can't answer. But I think our hope is that we will have sufficient qualified candidates to give the select board the appropriate choices to find the best possible manager for the town.
Also, these applications came in over a relatively short time frame, just a few weeks.
But that the time frame as created was created with Mr. Lynch's advice. So I
Right.
really I question using the time frame as a reason in our first search as a reason why we would get more. I don't think there's a direct connection to that. Mr. Lynch is the expert here.
You may be quite correct about that.
Yeah. So, question and I'd like to hear from each of the committee members. You can do a simple yes or no on this. Are we offering enough salary? Each one of you at any time.
Yeah, I'd have one comment about it. If we're going to attract really well-qualified candidates, it may not be enough salary because they're already being paid that much elsewhere.
Okay, next. Anyone?
I'll agree with Leighton on that. From what we have seen and from what Mr. Lynch has provided in terms of salary, and frankly, just the quick search that I did for all of the candidates on our salaries, we are essentially consistent with what is being paid by smaller towns with far less involved in intricate government issues to deal with. If we're comparing ourselves to the cities and other larger municipalities that we are closer to, and looking for somebody who is well-versed in some of those areas, we are probably at the bottom end of the salary chain.
Subletta, and then Betty.
Harry, are you done, Harry?
No. We've only heard from two of the
I'm
committee.
sorry, Harry, go ahead.
I've asked all of them.
There are
So
only three of us here.
there are only three?
Right.
Yeah.
Brian is here.
Brian is.
I am here. I am here. You give me a second to speak. Simple answer, salary is too low. And I will reiterate from what Leighton said earlier, that we don't feel comfortable going forward with two, no matter what the circumstances are in this case. And the salary is too low.
And if I could, I would echo what the committee members have stated. We put the $200,000 plus or minus number out there, and I know that there was some concern that there were people that felt that salary, not on the board, but the people that were observing that felt it may have been a little too high. The reality is that if you're going to attract someone right now, everything down on the Cape is paying $190 plus, and so you're not going to bring anyone up from the south. In this general region, the salaries have consistently been lower than the rest of the state. Most of the Plymouth and Plymouth County region that you would be drawing from are smaller communities where the managers or administrators are relatively new or close to retirement, and they're not going to be moving over to Plymouth. And then when you start heading up closer to Boston, the salaries jump up into the low 200s plus, and you're up around. There are managers in that region that are making when all is folded in, $230,000, $240,000, $250,000 when everything is worked into the equation. So it's hard to pull people in from that area, which forces you then to look out of state, and it isn't easy necessarily to get people from out of state to move to Massachusetts. One, relocation is always difficult anyway, and the pension system doesn't necessarily entice people to come either, given that they're probably further along in their career, and paying 11% into the retirement system doesn't necessarily make sense to them. So from a salary standpoint, you are on the low side, and it's tough to get people to necessarily make those moves.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Harry, you all set? Okay. Well, the salary, I said that from the very beginning. The chairman of the precinct chairs, Catherine Holmes, question about, we're paying too much and she makes more than the governor. And I said, she really doesn't. Let's put that to bed, that the contract she gets wasn't from this board, it was from another board, but it was a fair contract. She's middle of the road. And I said that from the beginning. And Bernie, I called you about that. So that's when I was talking, I didn't have the exact numbers. So let's put that to bed. But when we put out a range, I talked to you about that, 200 plus or minus. And it depends. And again, that's not the search committee's job to negotiate.
That's right.
Once we get a candidate, it's the select board. It's our job to do the negotiating with council on a contract. So we just want you to find us the best candidate. Now I got a couple of questions. When did you have an alternate now? Is the alternate qualified to be a town manager in Plymouth? In your opinion, I'll ask everybody on this board, on the selection committee. He or she is the second person, I guess. There's one that was in your top three, two dropped out, so we brought the alternate in. So he or she is the second person that we're going to interview. Are they qualified to be the town manager in Plymouth?
I'll answer that somewhat indirectly. We initially we voted unanimously to support 3 people, and it was not that person.
Okay.
And
but is that because you decided let's get it down to 3?
no, we wanted to have at least 3.
So your answer is you feel this person, he or she, is not qualified to be the town manager.
There was considerable disagreement among the members of the committee with regard to that.
So some were for, some were against.
Yeah.
Because out of 25, whoever this person was, get down to number 4. So I just assumed that they'd be qualified. Next question, number 1.
This was a strong person, but not as strong as the others.
The next question is number 1, the number 1 out of the 3 that's left. When did you know that you only had the number 1 and then you had an alternate?
I think Bernie has to give me the exact on that.
I believe it was roughly 1 week ago. I notified the committee that I had received a call, and that's when we set up the meeting for Monday. For yesterday.
So has the number 1 been notified that he or she is going to be interviewed to be the next town manager of Plymouth?
Both were indicated. Both candidates have been notified. Yeah, because both were still in the mix. When we lost that third candidate, when we lost the last candidate last week, that brought us down to 2. All 3 had been notified that they were going to be interviewed.
So if we re-advertise this, those 2 are gone, I would think.
Well, I've spoken to both and indicated that in the committee, we discussed this at the committee yesterday a little bit. It's my opinion you have to, that you put these people into that they should, my opinion. I suppose the people could do something different, but my opinion is that they should still be included in the mix.
So, but how long will that take, and how long will they wait to see if this position is what they,
It could vary. I mean, there could be, there's a few different ways we could do this, and happy to talk about that in more detail a little bit later, perhaps. But you could do it in a span of 2 weeks. You could turn it around, do a posting. I could do a posting tonight, and we could see if people come in over the course of the next couple of weeks.
My problem is I just wish that I'm looking at right here. Town manager search list of finalists on our agenda, and I just wish that. And I had mentioned to the chairman that if you guys get down to and you don't think you have a good group to be finalists, then let's re-advertise. before it gets too far. I mean, it's, you know, so.
Well, I think that if I may, I think that the goal of the committee and and certainly our goal was to try to meet the request of the board that, I think everyone's going into this with the right attitude.
No,
right?
everybody wants to get the strongest town manager we can get.
Yes.
But if the search committee brings us 3 candidates, and I know, because I've been through these searches before a couple of times, and after interviewing, we didn't hire anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chance of you bringing us 3, this board made this say we don't want any of these candidates. So my question is, why not take the 2 and interview them and see if the board, see what the how the board feels. I'm just, I'm trying to save money, and hopefully we get some, and if we feel they're not qualified, then we re-advertise. So, I mean, if there's a candidate you think is a top candidate, and there's an alternate, I don't know who's who, but because we don't have resumes to be, it's not fair. I don't have any resumes in front of me. I can't look, look at their qualifications. It's hard for me to do that. We've been relying on the committee. We all appointed different people. Leighton was my choice, and it's a good choice.
Yep.
And, so.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to, I let the rest of the board speak, but I just.
Yeah. If I may, just, and I appreciate that. You did choose a very good group. They've been a very good group to work with, and it's a cumbersome process here in Massachusetts because of the open meeting law and so on, and that's why we can't give you resumes until the committee has made their report, and they've made their report now, and so now we need to determine what the next step is going to be, and that's why we're here to talk to you tonight. But I agree.
And with not knowing, our hands are tied. We don't know what happened in those meetings, but I just hope there's nothing political here going on. So that always worries me with the climate, what's going on with so.
I'm happy to speak to that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Go ahead.
This was a fantastic committee to work with. I mean, I appreciate Bernie's comment saying it was good. I will stand on record and I will shout it to the mountaintops. This was a terrific group. Everybody worked hard. Everybody discussed things respectfully. There was no blatant politicization of anyone. To the contrary, there were people who made a very clear statement who said, you know what, I may personally have some issues based on where I stand. However, I'm willing to overlook those in order to find the best person for the town and pass people on for interview and otherwise, whom they may have otherwise had personal concerns because they recognized that they stood the best chance to being the right person for the town job itself. So people not only didn't stand on politics, people consciously put aside their own personal biases in order to make sure that the people being put forward were the best. And that's how we ended up with 3 unanimous choices. And that's a pretty unbelievable statement to me. I will be honest with you, I would have been shocked at the beginning of this, just based on the diversity of people on the committee, that we would have been unanimous on people. And we were unanimous on 3 after really good, honest, and very, as I said, respectful and appropriate discussion of everybody's relative strengths and merits. So,
and then 2 of the 3 pulled out.
No, listen, Steve, I respect everybody in the committee, and we appointed, the committee, and so I would have been disappointed if you told me different. So I respect it. I appreciate what you just said. So our goal, like everybody, we all have the same goal.
Absolutely. And I wanted to make the statement, not just for you, but obviously for everybody else who's listening and watching, because we know that people are always going to have a concern on important appointments like this, that there are some other motivations. And I can at least say, as confidently as I possibly can, as a member of this committee, that from that side, the committee did not do anything other than put its best efforts to find the right person.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from board members or comments? Betty?
So I'm gonna have you guys help me break this down in my head. We had 25 applicants. We cut that down to 7, and then it went to 6 because someone bailed out. Then we had 3, and someone bailed out of that. And then you went to the 4th to make the 3rd, correct?
Correct.
And then someone bailed out of that. So we have 2 people that this board approved to interview, correct?
That is correct.
So we have 2 people that right now are good to go for an interview.
This was until we met yesterday and decided that this was not the way we wanted to do this, that we wanted at least 3 candidates who were strong, and we didn't feel as if we'd come to the right conclusion on this.
I understand that, but these 2 people, whoever they are, made it to where they are, that this committee has notified them that they are finalists and set up an interview and want to set up interviews. Correct?
They have been notified of an interview, yes.
Okay, so now you're suggesting that we don't do that and that we just put it out again, where I actually agree with Charlie. Why don't we just interview the 2 we have? And if they don't fit our criteria as the best for a town manager, or they don't fit our little, you know, what we're looking for in a town manager, then we go back out. I think it's a little unfair for whoever these candidates are to kind of have to pull back now when they've been told they're going to interview, and now people want to go back out and get more people. And I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, we did have 25 candidates. It's not like, you know, we were, I don't want to say this, it's not like we were scraping the bottom of the barrel to get people to come in here. And where the pay is.
Yeah. Betty, I don't think that very many of those were particularly strong.
Then why did you put them forward?
No, I'm talking about the 25. There are not very many of the 25 that were very strong.
But you put the ones forward that we have in front of us right now. This committee put the ones forward that we have in front of us right now. Not that we know who they are, but
that's correct.
In hypothetical language. So that's just my, and the 200 plus or minus, we thought that, you know, we were under the impression, I was under the impression that if it was 230, that was under that 200 plus or minus. That's kind of why we were so, you know, vanilla with the whole thing. So that's just my thought. I mean, of course, it'll be the pleasure of the board how we move forward.
Yeah, I should mention I had a brief discussion with Bernie this morning about some of these issues. I pointed out that Bernie was hired by the board to come up with the applicants that we would be screening. The committee was appointed by the Board of Selectmen kind of to supplement the work that Bernie was doing and to come up with a recommendation.
Yeah.
These might not be, these are not totally interlocked. You could decide you're just going to go with whatever Bernie recommends to the board.
Well, I mean,
But the position of the screening committee at this point is that we think you should be going back out.
well, I mean, and the screening committee did exactly what we tasked them to do. You found candidates, you got them down to a number. Whether people withdrew or not is no responsibility of the board or the screening committee.
But it does leave us in an awkward position that we
Well,
lost so many.
Well, but that's through no fault of anyone else's, but we still have two people that you folks put forward. And I just think it just makes me uncomfortable because I don't think it's fair to these people that you kind of now you want to go back out when they haven't even had that opportunity. That's all I'm saying. I think that the committee did exactly what they were supposed to do. And they did their due diligence and they did all their work. And I know that they worked hard. But we do have two candidates in front of us. And I want that to be clear. When I said, so we have two candidates moving forward and we had people in the audience shaking their head no, I just want that to be clear that we in fact do have two candidates that this committee suggested to interview. So, but like I said, it's a board decision. I understand that.
Thank you. Patrick?
Just a question for Bernie. Just, is your recommendation the same as the screening committee to go back out? And if so, or well, I guess I'll ask you that first. Do you have that same recommendation to us?
Well, that puts me right in the middle, doesn't it?
You don't have to agree with us.
Well, but you're the one we hired to guide us.
No, I know
this,
that.
So.
I know that. I understand the committee's the committee's perspective. However, I will say that I do think that if the board wishes to move forward with, there's a couple of different options here. Let me put it this way: the board can take the recommendation of the screening committee, and we can go back out and we can discuss how long to go out for. The board can ask me to bring forward those two candidates, or see if I can put another one or two candidates with them, so that there is choice that you have beyond that. So those are pretty much the options that we have here. When we go into a community, there are several different ways that we do this. Some boards ask us to identify 8 or 9, to do the search, and then identify 8 or 9 people that we bring to the screening committee and ask them to narrow it down. Other communities do what Plymouth has done and said, okay, give everything to the screening committee and let them do the job that they do. And again, I can't stress enough how well this committee has worked. Other communities say to us, we're not going to use a committee. We want you to come back to us with 3 or 4 people. What we'd have here is, if you wanted to move forward, the screening committee has said that you should go back out. I think that you could use those 2, and I think we could probably try to find you a 3rd or 4th candidate to go with that. But we'd be sort of mixing up the different approaches that we've used in other communities. So I think it's reasonable to do that if that's what the board wishes to do. As far as my recommendation, I think both of the candidates are qualified for the position.
Patrick? So, okay. So then, I guess said in like a different way, because you are the one, you do this for a living, and we want to look towards what your recommendation is, and that's a lot of weight because you've been in it. You know the people, you know who's been there, you know who's dropped out, you know who's going to be the best. We all have the same goal. We want the best candidate for our town. If there was no screening committee and you were the screening committee,
yep,
what would be happening? Like, would you bring these 2 forward?
If I were doing it, yes, I'd bring these 2 forward.
Got it. Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, Bernie. So we really have 3 options. that you just went over. One, we can have the search committee go out and come back to us with the time and more. The second option is to have you go out, or you provide more names. And the third option is to go with the two applicants that we have, correct? That's what we've been talking about here.
I probably, yes.
Okay. So that being said, if there's questions or no more comments from the board, what does the board wish to do? I just have to say, if I applied and I was told that I was a finalist and going to be interviewed and then wasn't, my name would be out. Because by that time, you're basically telling me, well, first you told me that I was a finalist. Now you're telling me I might be a finalist, but we still want to see if there's somebody better than you. You know, so I personally think that we should interview the people that have made it. And then if we're not happy, go back out by whatever the wish of the board, or somebody come up and make a motion, and that's what we'll do. Patrick?
So just one more question, because we talked about the salary earlier, and it's kind of going back to Bernie, the one who's the experience. If we say whichever path it goes forward, we have these two, and for whatever reason, we go back to a position where we need to go out, would your recommendation be to make an adjustment to that, what's on the posting, or do you think that would be helpful, or would you recommend to just leave it the same if we were to go back out, however we got there?
If you went back out, I would probably recommend that it go up. Keep in mind that the 200, I think it's important to stress that the 200 is plus or minus.
Exactly.
Now, I don't see where you're going minus on that, but you can, it may be necessary to go above that once you make your decision.
And one last super quick question, if I can, Rob. So, I mean, would there ever be a path where you could say, you knowing the people in the industry, and even people who might have dropped out, say, hey, there was an adjustment in like a week's time? Could you know if there was interest or not on candidates? Say that maybe one of the finalists who people dropped out for different reasons, or if this was to go back out, would it be any path forward going back out would be, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 7, a longer period of time? Like, what is that? Could this be done quickly, or does it have to go through like a long?
You could do a 2-week posting, 2 to 3 week posting. I don't see it. I don't see it really going much below that. And as far as what impact it would have, it's really hard to say. Again, to draw people from Massachusetts who are, who have the skill set that you need and you want, you really have to be competitive with those communities outside Boston, which are going to be paying substantially more. Otherwise, we're looking at bringing people in from out of state, which works. Don't get me wrong. I want to be clear on this, that that people from out of state can work successfully here in a town meeting form of government. There's a long track record here in Massachusetts of people that have come in and have been very successful. So, and you in all likelihood would be looking at candidates with that. So I want to stress that if you're a municipal manager, you can work in different forms of government. So, but that's where you'd be really looking to expand out into, build up a bigger pool, probably.
Anybody on the board? We have any? Charlie?
Hey, Bernie, we talked about the salary and 200 plus or minus, with experience, qualifications and experience. I think when we hire if we find the person, we start negotiations.
Right.
I don't think we should put a big salary out there. You got somebody that's making 160,000 now, might be a great candidate. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it might be in a small town. if we throw it out that you're gonna make 240,000, they're gonna expect that.
Right.
And I don't think that's what we have to pay right away. It could be like, so I think we ought to save that for negotiations. There might be other things they want, like relocation and things like that if they're coming from out of town. So I don't think putting 200 plus or minus is a bad thing.
No.
I don't think that's going to stop candidates from coming. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad we're talking about this tonight so everybody, the public, can see that Melissa Riggi was not overpaid for the job that she did. She was not overpaid. And a lot of people made that comments and they criticized. Well, we got criticized. That's, we're getting criticized for everything. But the last board who did that contract, it turned out to be a very fair contract for the town.
Mhm.
So,
Yes, absolutely.
but I want to save that. We're not even getting into, once we hire the candidate's going to come to us and is going to say, this is what I want. And then we negotiate with the town council and work out a deal.
Right. Yeah, which is why we always put in that plus or minus. The question of whether you get more people with more money, there's a wow factor if you move that up. It gets people's attention. But obviously it depends upon the experience and the qualifications that people bring to the table.
Right.
I just have one more question back to Leighton. Leighton, was it consensus, unanimous to do this from the screening committee?
It was.
Okay, got it. Just after kind of listening aside, I'll just throw my thoughts. I think I agree that we have the two folks who have come forward through the screening process. We have the folks who are involved that sort of know the lay of the land. If there was someone who dropped out or was a finalist or was sort of in the mix late in the game that was thought to be, hey, maybe they'd come back, or if we put it for a week or two and we had this strong sense that there would for sure be more people putting their hat back in, I would support that. If there was that sort of sense, the idea that it would be going back out to sort of just broadly, and there's really not a sense that there'd be a, just kind of going out to the ether again. I kind of feel like we might as well just look at the two that have made it all the way through the end of the process now. So I know it's sort of hard to talk about the folks that it's on like open meeting here, but I don't think there's an answer that can be given, but that's kind of where I'm at. So it's like, no, I think we got to this point with two candidates, we can hear them out, but also if there's someone who's like waiting on the wings to come throw their hat back in, I would like to get there, that was already sort of through the process and maybe a finalist or was like kind of in the mix. I would like to talk about maybe opening the door to have more choice there. So I don't know where that leaves us. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, if I may, the people the finalists, the people of the committee, those people that withdrew, the two people that withdrew are not coming back. Okay. So as far as going through the process of being picked, they're not coming back.
Okay.
And we didn't feel that there was anybody on, well, I'm not sure. This is maybe mostly my opinion, but I didn't think that there was anybody else in the pool that we could go to add into this as a possible candidate.
We actually discussed that at our meeting because Leighton, you actually asked that question of everyone, if anyone thought there was somebody else, and we were unanimous as well. There were no other candidates, either amongst the ones that we interviewed or the ones that we chose not to interview, who we thought we would want to put forward to the select board.
Yeah, and that's why I commented earlier. I didn't think that there was a large number of candidates who were really strong.
Got it. Okay, so I think my personal final take is if we were not going to raise the salary on the posting, if that was not what the advice is to do or what we should do, which I think that is a good negotiating point, then I think that we seeing the candidates now, I can't find a reason why not to. If we were going to put it out there and raise the salary for the posting, I think you might open up possibly another crop of people who would be interested. Then I would be in favor of that, if that's the recommendation from Bernie. But otherwise, if we weren't going to do that, I think it's sort of, we had the pool who applied, and there's no one else who's on the wings, then it's tough when you don't have the, you don't have the visibility into seeing it. So seeing the people, so.
Any other comments from the board? Even, being honest, even seeing the people and going through the whole process and actually picking them, sometimes it comes back again. I've been on the board previously a while, and I've seen them come, and I've seen decisions we've had to do over for whatever reasons. So, it's all up in the air, really. But Patrick, I was trying to follow what you were saying, and then, so am I correct? And if I'm understanding you correctly, is you want to interview, or you feel okay with interviewing the 2 finalists that we have at the moment? Was I correct in doing that? Assuming that?
Yeah, I would say if we were if the alternative was to post it again at the same pay rate, then I think I'd be fine to have a look at the candidates that we have now. If we were going to post it again at some higher pay rate that might attract a new crop of people, and if that's what Bernie thinks might happen, then I'd say let's pause and see what crop of people might come forward by sweetening the pot to be more in line with the salary analysis that Bernie's done. So it kind of is dependent, but that's where I'm at. So I don't know where it kind of is, one depends on the other a little bit.
Betty?
So I think that's where the salary comes into the art of negotiation. So I think if we raise the salary, Plymouth is not easy. So you really got to want it to want to work here. And I think that the 200 plus or minus is still, it could be up to 230 or 240. It has to be for the right candidate. Putting this out there again, we started this process in October. And it's, January already. So, and we're not even, we're at the goal line now. So I think, how this board would negotiate a final candidate is how we're going to, I guess, get to where we need to be, because 200 plus or minus, I think any professional would look at that and say, okay, 200 plus or minus. I think my qualifications, I could negotiate to 230 or 240 or whatever it is. So I don't agree putting it out with a higher pay scale. I do think that we can, start with what we have, and then if that doesn't work out, then maybe do something different. But I think the art of negotiation is where, we're going to be able to get the right candidate and not have to come back and say, okay, now we're going to put it out more. And are these people, what does it do to these 2 people that have already been told they're finalists and they're negotiating? So that's just how I feel.
Charlie?
Bernie, can I ask you a question? The resumes coming in, were there any salary histories as part of the resume, or?
No. Occasionally, Occasionally people put that in. In Massachusetts, it's now illegal to ask people what they make.
No, but some people put
But some people put it in, and we do a little bit of background work to see what they're making currently, or what they. So we have a pretty good sense of what they were making.
I mean, if somebody first question to me, if I'm negotiating, what do you desire for salary? I mean, I ask what's gonna, and then you go from there. And you see, you'd be surprised. It might not be what you think, but somebody that's that qualified, we'll pay them what they're worth. I mean, it's our goal is to get the best town manager available to run the town of Plymouth. And if it costs an extra 10 grand or 20 grand, it's worth it. Believe me. Yeah. So the 200 plus, if I'm a good candidate, I know what I'm worth, and I'm going to sell myself to you. Okay, I'm going to come in and sell myself. So, and tell you why I should be making more than what the other person made, or the same, or you know what I mean. So if I'm that good, I'll sell myself to you. So I wouldn't worry about salary. I think we just got to get the right candidate and do some negotiating. So.
No, and I don't think we should be worrying about that tonight. We really just need to move forward. Is how do we want to move forward? The salary part's going to come.
So I would comment that the select board is certainly welcome to disregard our recommendation and decide to work with Bernie on this and not deal with us at all any further. That's fine.
It's not that we're disregarding you or me personally, Leighton, but the worst, if the two candidates, now one of them was unanimous with the three unanimous. So what's to say that we're not going to, if it's unanimous with you folks, why wouldn't they be unanimous with the board? So we might already have the candidates. So there's two candidates. We're going to interview them, he or she, and if we don't like them, we move on and we go out for another search.
That's why I said you're welcome to disregard our recommendation on this.
Yeah. Well, you might have already found the candidate for us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But you are recommending two people. That's the part that I can't kind of wrap my head around, is that you have two people that you've recommended. So we're not disregarding your recommendation.
Yeah, one of the people we voted unanimously on. The other was not a unanimous vote by any means.
But it was a vote to get them to the position, or whoever, to get them to that position.
Yep.
And
So.
I guess the question, if the board, the other question is whether just if the board wishes to move forward now, whether you want to move forward with just the two, or you want me to try to talk to some other people to bring other people to the table at this point at all, and not do a reposting, but try to just add to your pool.
Well, can I just
Patrick?
right on the heels of that, the talk to some other people. Do you know other people that might be like good candidates that would be like, like, so for me, I'm coming from it where we're looking for the biggest group of the best candidates.
Right.
So if there's people that that are itching to say, hey, this could be a great fit for me, that changes it. If it's sort of this go back to the ether and start fresh, and it might take a long, that's the part where I'm hoping I would be totally on board with pushing this back out if we had a sense that there's some candidates that you have,
You have to recognize that the pool of candidates that we screened were the ones that Bernie had presented.
So sorry to keep putting you on the spot, Bernie, but
it's all right. That's all right.
Are there people that where their situations have changed?
As we said, it's always dynamic. There's always things shifting around. People suddenly are available. Suddenly people are interested. And I may not have, there may not be anybody. we were heading down the path of you can't keep this open, you can't keep this going forever, right? So we had 3 people ready to go, and now we don't. And so the question is, do we keep this going, or do we take the 2 and look at those, or do we look at the possibility of maybe supplementing that with 1 or 2 that over the course of the next couple of days I could try to reach out to.
Like, I like that idea. If there's,
I'll make a motion. Because I like it too. I mean, make a motion and we'll vote it. And if it doesn't pass, then we'll keep going.
Carrie.
I like that idea.
Before we go to
Harry?
a motion, Bernie, given what you just said, what's the time frame? We're talking about, currently we were supposed to have the interviews next week.
Next Monday. Right.
Next Tuesday.
No, Monday.
Monday.
Oh, it was Monday?
Right.
Okay. We're at Tuesday. How
Would have to delay it.
well?
Yeah.
How would it? Bernie? I'm interested in what you think. How would this happen?
I would reach out to people over the course of the next few days and see if I can identify some people. And if I can, I'll let the board know that I'll be adding 1 or 2 people to that. Otherwise, I would just come in with the 2.
Would it be next?
And you wouldn't be interviewing next week, at least not on Monday or Tuesday. Probably maybe later in the week or the following Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So you're talking about adding a week onto the process. If it might be that, yeah. So that's what I would say.
Well,
I like that. I think that's pretty reasonable, and we know how these things work. It's small communities, and I'm sure you're tied in pretty well to that community, Bernie. So if it's 1 week and we have a unanimous recommendation from the screening committee to at least test the waters again. It's been a few months. It was the Thanksgiving time when this closed last, and maybe there's someone who raises their hand. But I think the week, maybe to the next week after that, like you said, Bernie, that's kind of where I think we would then have to go towards the at least acknowledge these 2 candidates. So I can make a motion to kind of do that if that's all right, Mr. Chairman. So
yes.
I'd make a motion that we instruct Paradigm to, through their networks, try and secure another candidate or 2 that they seem to be qualified. And if not, we would set a date of no later than the week of the 17th to have the interviews for the original 2 candidates, if on that meeting date.
Yep. I will be back to you. We're scheduled, I think I have it in my calendar here to meet on the 10th to meet with you, but if I think you have a meeting do you have a meeting on the 11th?
Yes.
If you have a regular meeting on the 11th, why don't I come back with to give you any names?
Okay.
And then we do the interviews on I think the 17th is Martin Luther King Day. Or is that the 24th?
Oh yeah.
No, yeah. So the 18th is.
I mean, if the board's willing, we can do it on an off night. It doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the 18th's on a Tuesday, so we can just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's push it back 1 week is the motion, and see if there's an additional candidate or 2.
Okay. Right. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Harry. Discussion? I'm going to do roll call. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes.
Mr. Blitzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Cavaco?
Yes.
And myself, yes, unanimous.
Okay. I'll see you on the 10th or the 11th at 6 o'clock.
Bernie, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
These candidates, if you do find them, it's not going to be from the pool that the search committee rejected, is it?
There may be one in there that I want to talk to. And there's that late entry may be a possibility as well.
Yeah, okay. Because, I mean, the search committee, I mean, I hope they're not offended by what we're doing, but.
No, not at all.
I respect every one of them. And if they've already rejected somebody from the first round, not even a finalist, I'd be kind of leery of it. So, because there's got to be reasons why they did that. So, but I just want to thank everybody in the screening committee too for what they did, for us, and we appreciate it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The intent of this is that there's some new interest that didn't have the opportunity to apply already. I agree. If they were not a finalist in the first round, then I would want to know that going in.
And Bernie, if we can get the resumes, if you do find it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
So we can start doing our work.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's that?
I have a comment.
Ready?
Yeah, Bernie, and so the additional people are additional to the two that your group has already agreed to.
You're going to have the two, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'll echo everybody else. Thank you for all your hard work and your professionalism. I appreciate it. The town does.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. I'm going to move over the airport just for a second and go to Karen Keene, who's not feeling well. So let's give her a little time. And hi, Karen. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chairman Quintel. So I'm here tonight to update everyone on a couple of COVID hot topics, let's call them. For cases, today in Massachusetts, there were 16,621 new confirmed cases, and unfortunately 94 new deaths over the weekend for the state of Massachusetts, not for Plymouth. However, today for the town of Plymouth, we had 128 cases. And those numbers are mostly drawn for people 27 to 40 and 60 and above. We talked about test kits last time. We are in the process of ordering 7,500 at-home test kits. There are 2 tests per kit. We're working with Lynn Barrett and using ACRA money in order to do that. We did reach out to NEMA and they were not eligible. We were not eligible to use NEMA or FEMA funds to purchase test kits. So we're going the other route. Hopefully we'll have those soon. New guidance was issued. I want to bring to everyone's attention because it's a big difference. For isolation, meaning you are a confirmed case of COVID, the isolation period has been dropped from 10 days to 5 days. So what that means is day 1 to 5, you must isolate just like you did before. You're by yourself. You're using, hopefully, the bathroom. You're not sharing with anyone. You don't go out of your house. You literally are isolating. Then on day 6 to 10, you can return to your normal life, whatever it is that you do, but you must wear a secure face mask. Quarantining has also had a change. For those who are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you still do not need to quarantine. However, the new CDC guidelines does request that if you have been exposed to someone who is indeed a confirmed case of COVID, even if you are vaccinated, that you wear a mask for 10 days. If you are unvaccinated, you must quarantine for 5 days. And quarantine means, again, you don't go near other people, you stay where you are, and then after day 5, strict mask use from days 6 to 10. So that's a big difference. We're leaving the 10-day period, which we've had for isolation from the beginning of COVID, and moving down to a 5-day period. For quarantine, we've always had a little bit of a change because we went from 14 to 10 to 7. Now we're going from 10 to 5. So it's a little bit of a change, but with the additional days wearing a mask, what the hope is that people will be able to get back to work in their normal daily activities sooner than they had in the past. Pfizer vaccine booster. I know you asked me about that last week. It now is indeed eligible for 12 to 15-year-olds, so that's fantastic. Also, there is consideration for children who are 5 to 11 that have immune deficiencies, that they would be also eligible for that booster. Now, I know we've asked about the hospital, our community partner, BID Plymouth, and Kevin Coughlin, who is president over at BID Plymouth, is nice enough to keep us posted on what's happening over at the hospital. I'm going to share a little bit of that with you tonight. As of last week, BID Plymouth had 44 COVID or suspected COVID cases that were hospitalized. 7 of their 14 ICU patients are COVID related. 63 members of their staff are out on quarantine because of COVID exposures, which is already adding to a very high vacancy rate they have with staffing presently. No elective surgeries are being performed. They're either postponed or canceled, especially those that may result in inpatient admissions because they want to keep the beds open for COVID patients. And currently there are 3 National Guard troops that are assisting at BID Plymouth. And then the final item that I have tonight is to talk about the Board of Health meeting, which will be happening tomorrow at 4 o'clock. As we all know, the Board of Health made a decision at their last meeting to mandate masks wearing in all indoor settings for the town of Plymouth. Since then, the department has been inundated with emails and phone calls from residents who are unpleased with their decision. They are going to meet on off schedule. They usually meet the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of the month. This is an off schedule meeting. It will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock via Zoom here on PAC TV. All emails and voicemails received will become part of the permanent record. However, there's just not enough time to read them all. So we're going to take about 10 minutes of that meeting and we're going to read some of them into the minutes. We're going to discuss what the Board of Health's credentials are. There are many emails that questioned the credentials of the Board of Health members to make any type of decision-making process as far as COVID is concerned. So they're going to take a little bit of time to discuss what their credentials are. Amy Naples from the Chamber of Commerce will also be there to discuss the results of a survey that she sent out to businesses and what the impact is using this mask mandate. Finally, there'll be a discussion, should the mask mandate be changed? Should it be removed? Should parts of it be changed? An example would be, should we remove the item that says mask for 2 to 5-year-olds? Maybe that should be removed. These items will be discussed at tomorrow's meeting at 4 o'clock. And there have been several people who have been invited to come on board as part of public comment. So I would encourage anyone who is concerned about the mask mandate or has questions about the mask mandate to tune in tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And that's what I have tonight.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the board? Betty?
Karen, and I'm sure you have been inundated. Actually, one of the Board of Health members did take to social media and ask questions about, what to do to earn their trust. And I know that there were some, vicious attacks on that, and which were totally unfair because obviously you don't make those types of mandates. But I have to say that you know, from all of the conversations that I've had, and I don't know if board members received as much as I had received, and I was tagged in that post. So every time someone commented, my phone would go off, and there's over, I think there's like 800 comments on that right now. So one of the things that, you know, I'm not saying that it's a trust thing, but I find it very cumbersome or very alarming actually. From day one, we always went with how the state mandated. You know, if the state mandated masks, we went with masks. If the state did something, we did something. We never deviated from the state mandates. This time we have. So, and I think that's the biggest problem that I have. And I think, and I've asked to speak at the Board of Health meeting as well. And not that I want to put the board in a position, but I'm probably going to put the board in a position because, you know, when you have no enforcement, we're not going to do anything if someone doesn't wear a mask. I mean, honestly, this mask mandate is ripping this town apart. I mean, people are just angry, you know, and I understand that Amy is gonna have some kind of a survey, but you know, there are other businesses that aren't involved with the chamber that have contacted probably each and every one of us. So I'd like to move forward and say that, you know, they should rescind that mandate and make it advisory and let people make their own decision, because right now everybody's fighting. And I would hope that people get to the point where they just want to do the right thing. And unfortunately, sometimes when you try to force people to do the right thing, they rebel, like we all did as kids. And it's really bothersome. I've talked to a lot of the businesses. I've talked to 40 of them, 40 business owners I've talked to over the past 2 days. And they're begging for the Board of Selectmen to, not that we can step in, but to ask if that mandate would be overturned, and actually ask for advisory. And I think myself personally, I think that's something that we should do, because if you're not going to mandate, if you're not going to enforce it, you're not going to do anything about it. You have people's kids, you know, that are working in our establishment. They're arguing with the customers. I mean, it's a mess out there. So
and I think one thing that everyone has to remember, Betty, and I agree with what you're saying, is that the Board of Health and the Department of Public Health are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
The Board of Health is a 5-member appointed board through the Select Board that serves as the regulatory force for
Right.
public health here in Plymouth. The
Right.
Department of Public Health are town employees. And
Exactly.
I think, at least I shouldn't say think, I know from some of these emails that I've received and phone calls that people don't understand that there's a difference there.
Right.
So what the board is going to do, the Board of Health, the 5-member board who made the mask mandate, the vote on the mask mandate, that's why they're having this meeting. Barry Potvin, Dr. Potvin, our chair of the Board of Health, will be bringing this mask mandate back to the 5-member board for reconsideration. Now, how that goes is totally up to the 5 members of the board, but people will certainly be there to offer input. We'll be there from the department to offer input on what we've received from residents. And then again, though, it'll be up to the 5-member board who took the original vote to then decide what they will do moving forward.
Correct. And I understand that completely, Karen. I just, like I said, my problem is that we have always followed the state protocol, and now we aren't. And people, I think there was less, it's like mayhem. I mean, I think there was less people upset about it when it was a state thing than there is that Plymouth has gone on their own, and Carver, Kingston, Duxbury, none of them have mandatory mask mandates, and people are taking their business elsewhere. So, and I don't know if the board wants to even be involved in it. I mean, I certainly think that, you know, maybe asking the the Board of Health to rescind that and follow the state guidelines, I mean, I don't know if that would be helpful, but I'd certainly like to hear what other board members have to say.
Sally?
I agree with what Betty said, very well said, Betty. And I'll tell you, I commend the Board of Health for reconsidering, considering what the votes. I mean, it's going to show people that you're listening. And what I would have hoped that would have been done is that you had an advisory at first, advising businesses and residents to wear masks. I mean, I wear a mask when I have no problem. I don't like it, but my wife is a stickler about it. And I don't have a problem, but the mandate is the problem. People are having problems with it because the state hasn't mandated yet. And it's a problem. There are business owners that are adamant they're not going to enforce it. So somebody goes in, then they go to the next place, and the kid at the door, the young hostess at the door tells them, and they give them, Panera Bread. It was in Facebook, got abused over it. So I just wish it would have. I hope you reconsider, and if it became an advisory, and then all of a sudden the numbers spiral. I know we have a hospital in Plymouth, so the numbers are always going to be high in Plymouth. But if the numbers spiral, hopefully the state steps in and mandates it. But I think that would go a long way. I understand the Board of Health, and I've told people that these are professional people. They're volunteers, but they're professional people, and don't take lightly what they're doing. They have a real important job. So in the select board, really, we have no power. We town council has showed us that we don't have any legal power to overturn what you're doing, and I don't think we would try and do that. We could suggest it. I mean, I would love to see that you reconsider and try it as an advisory and see what happens with the numbers. So, but I commend you for that meeting.
Mr. Blexer, when you're saying that you hope that we reconsider, you're talking about the Board of Health, correct? I am representing the Department of Public Health.
No, I'm commending the Board of Health.
Perfect. Okay.
You made the mandate. I'm not talking to Karen. Your report. I look at your reports. I love your reports. You do a great job. But I'm hoping. I don't have them in front of me, but I'm hoping you may relay this.
Absolutely.
I think just the fact that they haven't a meeting to even reconsider, that shows a lot. It really does.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think, and I've mentioned to this group before too, when we talk about, Massachusetts hasn't gone to a mandate, but our board did go to a mandate for masks, right, is that our vaccination numbers are lower than the state of Massachusetts. And I've shared with the board before that the department, the Board of Health, I've shared with the select board that the Board of Health is quite concerned that those vaccination numbers are lower than the state average in Massachusetts. And I think that might be one of the factors they took into account when they had the discussion regarding the mask mandate. Also, just one other thing, the hospital numbers, people who are hospitalized in Plymouth do not count towards our daily numbers.
Oh, they don't, okay. Then I'm sorry, I take that back.
Yeah, what is interesting, however, though, the numbers that do count towards our daily numbers are people who are in the correctional facility.
The prison, yeah.
So those do count towards our numbers. People who are hospitalized do not count towards the numbers, unless, of course, they live in Plymouth.
Yeah, well, like I said, I respect your job, and I've told people too. These are volunteers. These people, they don't work for the town. They're not getting paid. I'm talking about the Board of Health.
Right.
They're volunteer board members, and people just got to relax a little bit. But I hope I'd love to see them reconsider and go with an advisory and let people make the choice. And I think most of the people are going to make the choice to wear the mask. I really do. But when it's mandated, some people just, as Betty said, that rebellious thing that you're not going to make me do this. I'm not going to do it just because they're telling me to do it. And that's it.
Right, and the board recognizes how many people have reached out and how much concern there is about the mandate. And I think that's definitely one of the factors why they decided to revene.
I responded, Yeah, I've responded to some of the people. I've responded to them and try to, give them some accurate information about Board of Health. But,
I would also like to take this second to also give a big shout out to my team. We're a very small staff. There's myself, Margaret Coe, who's our health agent, Rachel Milleroy, who's our health technician, and we have a new admin who just joined us, Dana Burke. And I have to tell you that we have heard some things this past week that I have never heard in my entire life. I have never seen such a level of hatred ever expressed to another person like I have this past week. So I would hope that those folks.
Towards your folks?
Yes. And I would hope that people who partake in our Board of Health meeting tomorrow remember that it's very important to be civil and to follow professional guidelines when we're having discussions of such great importance, such as COVID and mask mandates.
It's funny. My wife, and I'll leave it this because we're gonna move on. But my wife said to me, these same people that don't want to put a mask on, they don't mind when the Board of Health is in taking temperatures and refrigerators and checking whether they get gloves on and checking sanitary things in the back of the house in the restaurants and finding them when they don't the restaurants for not being clean or not having the right temperatures. They don't mind that, but they don't want to put a mask on. So it's kind of funny. So, but good luck and you shouldn't take abuse. Really, but and I hope if you can relay this to the board, the health board, that if they consider reconsideration, I think it'll go a long way in this town. And I think more people will wear masks because it's an advisory and it's not a mandate. I really believe that from what I'm hearing. So.
Yeah, I'll definitely bring those comments forward tomorrow. Yep.
So anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say. Good luck.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one more. One more.
Well,
Mr. Quinto.
I want to say something too,
Okay.
Karen, is that the Board of Health definitely has my full support in whatever decision they make either way. I read council's definition, if you will, or explanation of who has the jurisdiction in the town, and it's definitely the board. I think it went as far to say and of C. I've heard some of the complaints, and I'm in the food business myself with restaurants. And I've been telling the people that started telling me in the beginning, and they are, and I don't want to use the word they're stubborn, but sometimes they don't want to hear the true fact. I said, she said right out loud to everybody, it wasn't going to be enforced. Nobody was going to be fined. I mean, so I don't know why people are jumping off the bridge. I really don't. When you go to a restaurant, at least when I go to a restaurant, if I have a mask on, I have to take it off. How do you eat? How do you drink? You take it off. I mean, and I am not, especially somebody that was hospitalized a year ago today with COVID. You will never hear me say in public that not to wear a mask. Because everybody, how many of you have all seen the news? And the people, God forgive, but they're on the news and if I only knew, I'm telling you now, wear a mask. So, whatever your decision is, I want it to be your decision and don't be pressured. And I think you're meeting virtual, correct?
Yes.
I mean, it's not an in-person meeting, because
Right.
if it is, I would advise you to have some uniformed police there and maintain order. And anybody that's not in order, shut them down and don't even listen. Just have Barry or whoever's running the meeting come right out with the rules in the beginning, just shut them right down. They're not going to be disrespectful, and don't take that from anybody, because that's not the way we should be running. And that's
Thank you
all.
for
I
those
don't know if
comments.
anybody
Thank
else
you.
had to say anything.
Will
No,
that
if
be
you
a-
do what you have to do, and I hope you feel better too.
Thank you.
Will that be on PAC TV?
It is. Yes, it's starting
At
live.
4 o'clock? At 4?
Yes, 4 o'clock. Mhm.
Yep.
Betty?
Just one more thing, Karen. I
Okay.
know that Kingston just implemented a vaccine clinic.
Mhm.
Can we do the same thing?
we're trying.
Okay.
Yep. And in the meantime, I've actually reached out to Kingston to see if we can actually kind of piggyback with them in the interim.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Karen. Thank you.
We'll go back to, on the agenda to the airport update. I'm sorry, Mr. Marr, and welcome and Happy New Year. Now we can go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I will in the future. My name is Ken Fosdick. I'm chairman of the Airport Commission. I have Doug Krishati, who's the vice chair, with us. We also have Tom Marr, and we also have Jeff Adler, our resident engineer, here to answer any questions. We thank you for the opportunity to tell you what's going on. We are charged with the responsibility of managing this great asset the town has, and to the best of our ability. And we're about to announce for our stakeholders, our neighbors, our pilots and business people here on the airport, that we're entering into a master plan update. So what is a master plan? The master plan is the way the federal government and the state organize their capital improvement plans. So they process over a 20-year period how they're going to make their decisions for capital improvement funding. And every 10 years, we have the opportunity to update our master plan. I want to be very clear right now from the beginning. We have no intention of changing the category of our airport. It will remain a B2, and a B2 airport defines the size of the aircraft, the weight of the aircraft. We're not changing any of that. So this is just an update so that we can have our funding in place as we go forward. So the funding and the capital improvement plan specifically speaks to things like repaving runways over a period of time. Just like the highway department, you have to repave roads, you have to do that. So we're on the schedule for in the next 2 or 3 years to have our runway repaved. We also have safety improvements that come up that are the benefit of all of our stakeholders, the neighbors, the pilots and people here at the airport, that change over a period of time. And so we need to go through. We had a master plan, a major master plan update some 12 years ago. We are not changing that. This is just an update to update changes at the airport. For example, we're here in our new administrative building. Well, our old master plan has the old building, and so we have to relocate it and we have to update the plan. When we do this update, we then go back to the FAA and to the state Aeronautics Commission, and we talk about safety improvements that they feel they want to fund and that we feel are necessary to update the airport and continue to make it as safe as possible. So the process starts by us announcing tonight that we're going to go through this master plan update. We will have a public meeting on January 13th. We will announce it in the newspaper. Unfortunately, it will be electronic. And we will tell people that we're going to enter into this process. We will then go through a period of time where we do this update, where we physically go and our engineers update the plan. And then we speak to, again, the FAA and the State Aeronautics Commission as to what they have plans, what our plans are, what our desires are. Once we've done that, we then go back to the public. We have another meeting and we tell them what we think we would like to do. We take public comment on that, and then we finalize the plan. And once it's finalized, we again go back to the public. So tonight, we're just announcing that we're starting the process, and we will be going through it. We're not changing the airport. We're not making it Logan South. We're just continuing to maintain what we have and to do it in the best and most efficient way possible. Entertain any questions you might have. The process will take several months. It'll probably take, well, it'll take at least 6 months in total.
Any questions from the board members? Or comments?
Okay.
I guess not. So you're going to do your open forum on January 13th. People can Zoom in. And I have to say, I have visited over there to Plain Jane's on the weekend, here and there on a Sunday. And the place looks great. It really does.
She's doing a great
A
job.
lot of changes there. It looks really nice.
Our employees are doing a great job. Tom is doing a great job of managing the facility and the whole airport. So again, we're not changing, we're just updating and making sure we're current. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Sorry for the delay.
Not a problem.
Budget discussion.
Thanks, Ken.
Mr. Hartman and maybe Lynn Barrett, or there's Lynn.
Sure. So at the last meeting, we asked the board if they had any updates or comments. There were some comments made about salary reserve, and I'll let Lynn speak to that. So we've made those adjustments. We did also forward a copy of the job description for the sustainability planner and talked a little bit about what that salary would be. So Lynn, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I just basically what I did was all the adjustments that I made to the budget created about a little over $500,000 that was added to the salary reserve account. The budget didn't change in total. So all the reductions and moving around, we were able to add an estimated salary of $95,000 to the the town manager's budget for the climate position, and then $541,836 to salary reserve for potential contractual increases that may come up through negotiations and through working with some of those groups that we talked about at the last meeting.
And I should point out that that's kind of our best guess, but we always have October town meeting, make additional adjustments if necessary, up or down. So it's kind of a best guess of what we think we need. And depending on how that rolls up, maybe that number gets adjusted up or down in October.
Yeah, I agree with Lee, only because we have not started negotiations with patrolmen, superiors, library. So it's really, and non-union group. I mean, I know that the chairman has sort of spoken to them, but we haven't really sat down and gone over things. So potentially we may have to, come back and revisit that number. So we'll see how it goes.
Lynn, I'm sorry, did you say that the new position, did you say it was 95,000?
I put an estimate in there based on the information that was given to me initially from Patrick had sent over to us and to HR. And then Marie came back with I think a salary range of where she thought it might sit into the budget, but I had already submitted the budget document to, it doesn't mean that you have to pay this person 95,000. It's just, that was sort of the placeholder that I put in there for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I may, I don't have it in front of me. What is the salary of the assistant town manager?
The assistant, if you just give me a second, I
Just
can.
curious, yeah.
Yeah. The assistant town manager is in the non-union executive group, and that salary is just waiting for it to open here.
No problem.
Yeah.
I just thought it was close to that, but I could be very wrong.
So the assistant town manager is an E4 in the executive group under the non-union, and that salary, the minimum is $97,823, and the senior step is 123 up to 123,677.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Questions or comments for the board for Ms. Barrett? Mrs. Cavaco?
And those are, so some of these new positions that we may have to hire, I mean, we heard about, you know, the town manager, I mean, the assistant town manager, that pay is, you know, pretty low. So there is room in the salary reserve if we have to adjust those salaries.
Well, there is money that we have put into the salary reserve. Oh, are you talking about current year or in the budget for 23?
Both.
Well, we do have money in salary reserve that for current year, that we have set aside that we can make adjustments in town manager and or assistant town manager, whatever ends up happening. Any changes to the salary range for the assistant town manager, all of those changes, types of changes would have to go to town meeting in an article to change the bylaw, because each of the executive group positions are in the bylaw under a certain E4, as I said before. So it only goes up to an E6. So you go from an E4, E5, or E6. So we have different executive group department head positions that are in those particular areas. And I think we can certainly look at that, but looking at one position, then you have to look at all those positions.
Right.
And then the salary range, I believe that the HR director sent to you was also a non-union executive management group salary range, which I believe was an E7 that she was recommending, which is just slightly below the E8s, who are like captains and deputies and that kind of thing. So.
I mean, I just, like I said, I'm worried. So let's just say we hire a manager or assistant town manager, and, you know, I think it'd be difficult, especially after looking at some of the information that Bernie had. Even an assistant is anywhere in the vicinity is coming in, you know, 150, 140 in that area. So if we had to hire a position like that now, which we most likely will, is what is our ability to hire them at a higher rate than that, is what I'm saying.
Well, again, in the bylaw, there's provisions if whoever you hire, if they have a master's degree, that master's degree comes with a dollar amount that gets added to their base salary. As far as hiring someone outside of the range of an E4, I believe you have to go to town meeting, and you could do it at the special in April. It has to get voted. The rate, you know, either an E5 or an E6 or whatever you're going to change it to or recommend to change it to. That's probably the earliest that you'd be able to do that.
Yeah, so there's a range that the bylaw says we can provide. Anything different than that. And there are also things like the educational incentive that you can provide. Beyond that, if we want to have a higher range, it's a vote to amend the personnel bylaw. And again, I think what we keep saying, we have to make sure that whatever we do, we look at everybody in that bylaw. We're not all of a sudden creating a bigger problem by moving one person without looking how that settles with everybody else in that whole group.
Right. Okay. And one of the other things, I don't know if, Lee, if this is easily accessible, and we've had conversations about it before, is that, legal fees. I know that there was a request for information. I think it was back in 2018. It was done by a town meeting member. And our legal fees to our council, within the past previous 10 years was like $20 million. Can we get what our legal fees have been for the past? What I want to do is a cost analysis that, is it prudent for us to hire our own attorneys? I mean, we're a big enough town that we should have a town council. And I'm just wondering if there is a significant cost savings there. I'm not saying to get rid of our legal counsel if we need something, but I know it's been brought up before and it didn't pass. It didn't pass the board to move forward, but I think it's something that we should reconsider again.
So we can look and give you a little summary of the last 3 years, and we have to break it down because in the last 3 years, we've had some pretty high expenses because of the sewer main break. So we'll have to kind of look at how we put that so you can kind of compare labor to labor, unusual things to unusual things, planning and zoning, legal disputes.
Right.
We'll have to figure out how we put that together, but we'll give you a 3-year summary of
Okay,
that.
perfect.
And just, I was involved in this a few times. You're never going to find a single person who can do zoning, land use, labor.
Correct.
I just went blank.
No, you're
I
still
know.
there.
I know in the last fiscal year, we got some information from town council that approximately 34% of the annual charges were associated with labor versus zoning and other, legal matters. So that was just in the last fiscal year, which was fiscal 20.
Yeah, I think it's some figures that we should take a look at and see if we can do something better. That's all.
Any other comments from the board? I just have one, Lynn, that we can work on it if it's possible. I had said that in the transition here to a new town manager, and I don't want to get into the numbers out here and make anyone uncomfortable. I know there's a cost associated with that, so I want to try to find a place in the budget where we can actually cut or save money to make up for that amount. And I see Harry shaking his head. We had talked about it already because I did make that comment to the commitment. So whatever that number is weekly, for however many weeks it is, I feel I owe it to the taxpayers. And Harry agree with me if I'll chime in. But I would definitely like to roll up our sleeves and see if we can't, so it's not a burden to the taxpayer. I mean, I've said it in public, but I just we're talking about the budget. Harry?
I can't agree enough or any more than I do with you, Dick. And I was going to bring it up if you didn't. I'm glad you did. Thank you very much. We've made a commitment to take those costs that have been incurred in this transition and find somewhere in the budget where we can save the money, so that the taxpayers aren't footing the bill. So,
I'm not familiar with the commitment that you made. So if you want me to look for a number, I mean, I'm just not sure what was.
Lynn, I will give you a call tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And run through what those commitments were.
Okay.
And then you'll actually be able, in fact, you were going to get a call anyway. Unfortunately, I was at a wedding, so I didn't have time to call you earlier to figure out what those costs would be. They'll be pretty easy to calculate.
Okay.
But there are a number of moving pieces to it. So better that I give you a call tomorrow.
Patrick?
just if we're gonna have something that affects our select board recommended budget, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about these things. So I know there's discussions to be had, but if there is a reduction or recommendation, I know you're going to call her tomorrow, Harry, but can we just circulate what that is?
Absolutely.
Because then.
So it's my understanding you're not then voting a budget tonight? Or are we voting a number tonight? No?
My preference would be to hold off on voting the budget until we have that number because it's several $100,000.
Okay.
So.
But that would be up to the rest of the board.
I mean, I think we can pull together. Do you think we can have it pulled together within the week, Harry? So we ain't holding up everything?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I don't know how much it is, but you know.
Well, I've got an idea of what it is.
Okay.
I also have some thoughts on where we could find that money.
Okay, that's fine. Is that all right, Patrick? Could you keep Patrick in the loop? Harry, where'd you go? There you are.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
all right.
So just, I know we have so for example, next week we have the joint meeting with, so I think it would, if we delay this, we know it'll push everything up, that whole schedule back, but, yeah, well,
we're not trying to hold up anything. Is there a
No,
way
no,
that
it's
Harry
just-
can
just
talk
the,
with you tomorrow and maybe have a placeholder for a reduction? Or, I mean, that's all I'm looking to do. I mean, and I didn't plan on doing it like tonight because it was the budget vote, but it's something that I've been talking about, and I want to make sure that we look at it.
So I'm sorry that, I don't know what just happened. What did I miss?
well, welcome back, Lee.
When did you go out, Lee?
Before Harry said something, whatever Harry said, I missed completely.
Okay. You want to just try it again, Harry? So.
Well, basically, Dick had mentioned a commitment on our part, which was expressed and is actually out there in the public, that we find reductions, savings in the 2023 budget to offset the costs incurred in this transition from the former town manager to the new town manager, and with the reduction in salary from taking into consideration all the moving parts in it, with for instance your increase for your the time that you're spending
right
as town manager, plus the costs incurred in what we agreed to with Melissa, and also taking into account that as best we can, that clearly there's a little bit of a delay in it, but we'll have to do an estimate on the additional cost of Melissa's salary until the end of July, plus another town manager's salary. So I mean, I don't want to give a guesstimate, but I've got a thought of what it's going to come in around, and I think we need to commit to removing aspects of it. We need to reduce the budget by what that amount will be.
My only observation then is I think that goes to the new initiatives we're talking about, and some of those new initiatives that we added into the budget. That would probably be the first place we'd look at to not include in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of thought about that. I mentioned that I've had some thoughts on that, but I guess that what we're talking about is how do we do this and not delay the overall process.
Lynn, when do you need the vote on the budget?
Well, the joint meeting is to basically physically give your budget to advisory and finance. So we would be printing after tonight. We had planned on printing the books and having everything ready for advisory and finance. They start their subcommittee meetings with the departments after next week's meeting. So that was the plan. So if it sounds like if we are going to be making changes to the budget, that you probably will not be able to vote that until next week. At least that's what it sounds like from your discussions. So we would have to wait to give advisory and finance their books until after next week's meeting.
Could we postpone the advisory and finance meeting? Should we postpone that, the joint meeting?
It does start to back everything else up. Everything else is all kind of lined up based on that.
Yeah, their public hearing on the budget is February 16th. So that gives, you don't want to give them 3 weeks or 2 weeks even. I mean, I know, Harry, you know what the time frame is. It's pretty tight, and I know they're chomping at the bit, to get started. We have all the subcommittee meetings scheduled, and ready to go.
You think you can get it done in a day or two, Harry? We call a special meeting Friday, open it just to vote it and let it move on.
I don't see any problem with that. I don't know if the other members of the select board are on board with that. We would, I'd be interested in their thoughts. I'm also interested in Lee's thoughts on, the logistics of this.
Yeah, I mean, I would more defer to Lynn whether Friday gives us enough time or not.
Because you're talking about printing the budget books.
Yeah, we do everything in-house. So
still,
Friday, I mean, that would mean that we would be doing it, we'd be working probably Monday and Tuesday, putting together those books, and probably have them hopefully available, Wednesday or Thursday of next week. I'm not sure.
Harry, did you do the figures?
No, I needed to talk to Lynn for the figures.
So, I mean, I think, I'm just trying to think of how you do this, because again, I think we could come up with a number pretty quickly about what the cost is.
Right.
The tough part is having to now cut that out of people we already told they were getting certain expansions to their budget. Am I still on? Yeah, okay, so people were frozen. So, I don't know, it's
I think we are losing you, Lee.
Yeah, no, I stopped. I stopped mid-sentence. No, you didn't lose me that time. I'm just
You're
trying
thinking.
to think.
Okay.
Just trying to think of what our options are. At least maybe a Thursday meeting makes more sense.
Okay.
Than a Friday, and then that would give. And maybe even if you could do a Thursday morning, I don't know what my schedule is, but do something on Thursday morning, and then that would give staff time for Thursday and Friday to make the copies.
I only said Friday because I was trying to give time and I was trying to make it work.
Well, I think the number is fairly easy to come up with. And I think there are kind of two numbers to keep in mind, whether it's just as we look at 2023's budget, or if we're going back into this year's budget when we have salary reserve to cover what's going on this year, and whether you want to look at what we're doing from November 30th on, or if you want to really just do it as a clean slate, saying here from January 1st moving on, here's how we're going to make sure that this budget is a wash.
Lee, Chris just sent us a chat message that we need 48 hours
no, that's
to
true.
post the meeting. So Thursday
We
doesn't.
have capital review all day on Thursday.
Patrick?
So I'm just trying to think about the process of kind of how we got here, and at this, at this meeting, trying to take like a significant amount that would be adjusted at this point, and how it affect the services and what we've already put out there. I'm wondering if if the intent is to take the burden off of the taxpayer, could we, instead of trying to reduce sort of where we're at with the budget and what's lined up, which is to provide services, and already the budget was set with the 1% reduction on the increase to keep level services. So there already was some consideration there on this this go around. Could we, if it's the idea to maybe take it from, say it's like a free cash or another place, or I don't even know, I haven't even had time to really think about it, but I think trying to go back towards the budget itself at this point might be really tough in like a 48-hour notice where we know how much it took to get to the point of having the budget now.
And Lynn, tell me if I'm right. We could just vote it tonight and then offer amendments too. So we could go with it, look at this again, and
That's
then
what I was
suggest
following,
some
yeah.
amendments to the finance committee afterwards, knowing that
could
there's a little
definitely
bit of
do
a
that.
risk. A little
Yeah.
bit of a risk with that because you voted the budget as it is now, and then you're going to come back and tweak it. But again, that might be the best approach at this late hour.
You could definitely do that. You could make recommendations, we could make recommendations to advisory and finance committee to, reduce, include it in their budget, or you end up, obviously, if they don't agree, you could go to town meeting with two different budgets. I mean, we like to be all on the same page, I know that one thing that, just to bring you to your attention, as far as the funding sources, I believe I'd have to just go back and check the exact dollar amount, but I believe I am recommending that we use free cash for the part of the outgoing town manager's contractual settlement of the severance, part of it. Because basically for a town meeting for the budget next year, they'll only be paying for one town manager out of the tax rate, so to speak. Whatever was going to the outgoing town manager, I was recommending to fund through free cash.
Well, then that sounds like you're already doing what
Yes.
Patrick is suggesting, which would be is a perfectly suitable solution. The taxpayers have already funded free cash.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So I believe I took her salary for July, the month of July, and the severance, and is recommending it to come from free cash already.
Yeah, the only additional would be maybe I don't want to say only, but one of the additionals would be the difference in Lee's salary.
But that will be done. But that will be done by July 1st. So it won't. That will have no impact at all. Yeah, I'm hoping. That will have zero impact on next year's budget.
All right. Well, then.
Not that I don't love what I'm doing.
I know then Lynn, I'll call you tomorrow and just make sure that you've, it sounds to me like you've already done the accounting that needed to be done, that I'm concerned with. So
Lee, wasn't the difference like $6,000? Wasn't it? It was pretty low.
Which
for your pay difference.
Yeah, it's like $1,200 extra a week. So depending on how long it goes.
Right.
And we're hoping it's not that long.
Lee, we're trying.
I'm having fun though, so I just don't want to do 3 jobs. So I'm ready to go back.
All right, so.
Am I digging myself a hole?
No.
What a good job.
Yeah. All right, you have a motion on the budget?
Motion to approve.
I have a second?
I'll second that. Lynn, do you need a number on that, the dollar amount, or?
So the dollar amount in the it's like a 6-page document that I sent you guys. So the total budget, including the general fund and enterprise funds, is $334,007.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yep.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks.
Mr. Hartman, Cedarville traffic update?
Sure, I'll just go through, like I put some notes together to give the board a little update of what has kind of gone on and where we are. It's kind of a mixed bag for good news and bad news, but let me just kind of read through my notes. So JB and the DPW have been awesome with this. So for a number of years now, JB and myself through the planning department have worked trying to look at the issues in the Route 3A corridor. And so what we're talking about when we say the 3A corridor, we're looking at from Hedges Pond Road, which is where the Mary Lou's is on State Road, Route 3A, all the way down to Exit 3, formerly Exit 2, on Route 3 where the ramps are. So one of the biggest challenges we're dealing with is that these roads are all under the control of Mass DOT. So anything we do has to meet their standards, has to comply with their requirements, and has to be done in a way that's acceptable to them. So early on, and the state delegation was awesome, but early on we had the state delegation, myself, JB, we met with Mass DOT, and we asked them to look at these intersections. And our focus more was on the Herring Pond Road intersection where the traffic comes off of Exit 3, trying to get into Cedarville, or the people trying to find a quicker way to the Cape are getting off that exit and trying to go down State Road to Sagamore. So we met with them and with the delegation, and they indicated that they have all kinds of projects out there that rank far higher than this one, and there are so many other intersections out that they have under their control that this one doesn't rank in any of their top list of priorities to address. So we really didn't get far with them. We have a thing that's done through the Old Colony Planning Council. It's federal money that comes through the state that is then done through the Old Colony Planning Council. And it's a thing people refer to as the TIP, and that is Transportation Improvements Program. And it's a 5-year program that looks for projects for improvements within the town that we can do. And a number of projects in Plymouth, the Obery Street was on the TIP. I'm trying to think of some of the others. So the sidewalks and work done on Taylor Ave was on the TIP. So we've placed this on the TIP. The only thing about that is that they want 25% design plans to advance it. And even if we had those plans today, we're talking about a 5-year process for it to start to rank through that process. But again, at least it's on that TIP and it's something we're looking at. The other thing the state delegation has done before is put these improvements in what's called transportation bond bills. And those bills, and it sounds good, and they've allocated money to do that work, but unless the state floats those bonds, the money never gets allocated. So we have not been lucky to have the state take the bond bills that we've been in and floated those for funds. So at least those are avenues we've been looking at. If you recall, we also had that land next to the old Cedarville landfill that town meeting voted to sell. We're currently working with our partners at the Economic Development Foundation on that sale. And part of the agreement we had is that we would work with the neighbors and work with MassDOT to try to figure out if we could do some, or not to figure out, but to do some traffic mitigation in that area to improve the existing issues out there. And so we met with the residents down there. We met with MassDOT. We actually have 2 conceptual plans that we designed for each intersection. That's the Hedges Pond Road intersection, and that's also the Herring Pond Road State Road intersection. And one option was a signal for both of those, and one option was a roundabout for both of those intersections. And Mass DOT over the course of a couple of different meetings, and again, I thank JB for doing this work because he and his consultants were the ones who kind of really led that design effort. But Mass DOT made it clear that the roundabouts were the options that they would agree to and that we'd have to look at those. And we did those plans about 2 years ago. And the estimate we had for both those intersections, whether they were roundabouts or signals, was about $1.5 million to do each one. So $3 million total if we did them both. When we met with the neighbors and we talked about the issues down there, and we indicated that this 60 acres of land that we were selling to the foundation, it wasn't going to solve all the problems. And so the focus everybody agreed to was the Herring Pond Road State Road, and that at least we could get those improvements going there. That would be a good step towards getting things accomplished. And so We are moving ahead with the Economic Development Foundation. We've got a PNS signed with them for the land. I can tell you that the kind of prices that they've been talking to people about for the sale of that land is well in excess of 1.5 million. So I'm optimistic that we'll have that money. The PNS requires that they will work with us and require that they'll do those improvements. It's a little tricky because it's also, we have to throw Mass DOT into it too. But again, I think the way, from what I'm seeing with that sale and the money there that's going on, I think we're in good shape to get that work done. I want to caution people though, that even if we're ready to go tomorrow with that sale and the money's in hand, we have a lot of design work to do. We have to go through Mass DOT's process. We have to have them approve it. They typically want you to come in at 25, 50, 75% design, have them approve it before we move forward. So again, I think I'm very optimistic that we have a solution to do some improvements out there, but because of the number of people who have to put their thumb on this one, it will still take a little time. Also, Mass DOT has been holding hearings on the Cape Cod bridges, and JB again and myself have attended those meetings, and we've stressed the need for traffic improvements prior to the bridge work, so that if they're going to really talk about this major reconstruction, we need mitigation done and put in place before the bridge work is done to handle whatever kind of detours and impacts that's going to have on the community. So we've also on that front really tried to get the attention of the state to say, when you're looking at this project, and again, it's years out, but it's another place that another avenue we've taken to say, please look at this corridor and improvements here. And then the kind of a couple more points, but kind of the main final point is, we know that there's a lot of federal funds coming down the pike for infrastructure improvements. So again, JB and I and the delegation are looking very closely at those funds. And if some of those funds that come out from the federal government for infrastructure improvements are eligible, it's something that I think we have a good chance of getting some of that funds earmarked towards these two intersections too. So as I said before, I don't want to sugarcoat this. It's still probably a 2 to 3 year process away to getting the actual work done. But I think the good news is we're working on a number of different avenues, and especially the land sale, I think, has great promise to be able to start to deliver on some improvements out there. And then also, as soon as we have a design plan and we know about when we want to do construction, there are all other grants out there, Mass Works grants, this would qualify for, and I think it would be a great candidate because of the jobs that would create having that 60 acres developed. So we would also be looking at those grant opportunities to also help fund. We really can't do the grants now because without a design, and they, like most of those grants, want you to be shovel ready. So there's not a lot we can do immediately with it, but we do have that opportunity. And again, I think it would be a great candidate for some of those grants. And DPW, JB has been very successful at securing those grants in the past for different projects. So good progress. I'm encouraged by it, but again, unfortunately, especially because of the mass highway control, it is something that will probably take some time before we can actually implement. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Questions? Well, Lee, I also, go ahead, Harry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to thank Lee for prepping all that information in a fairly short period of time with all the other stuff that you're doing. You know, this is top of mind for a lot of the residents of Plymouth, not just the people who live in Cedarville, but the people who have to go through there, because it is kind of a loony bin down there. So it's nice to hear, and certainly understood that, you know, there's going to be time involved.
And I agree completely. I spend a lot of time at that interchange, and during rush hour, it's pretty horrific, the backup and delays that it takes. I should point out that at the meeting of Mass Highway, we did ask them to put in a turn lane. So if you're on Herring Pond Road going towards Cedarville and you want to head south towards White Cliffs, they did widen that and add a second dedicated lane so that some of that pass-through traffic who's only going to take a right turn to go south on State Road, they did add that. So at least we got some very, I'd call it minor, but at least something was done in the interim that helps moderately some of the situations there. But yes, it's probably our worst intersection right now in the town.
Yeah.
And a lot of accidents have been happening there.
Right. I want to say thank you also, Lee. I reached out to Vinny DiMacedo and Matt and just get some background on it. And I just don't want it to be left on the back burner and have an accident actually bring it up for conversation. So we want to keep it in view of all the things, the moving parts. So I know you'll do that and through the foundation also. So yeah.
Can we use ARPA funds for that?
I don't believe so. And again, a lot of those funds need to have shovel-ready projects where we don't even have the design done. We have a conceptual design. We don't even have the 25 yet. And we talked about advancing the design now, but without knowing what the funds are, we could spend, and the design work will cost $250,000 to $300,000 just for the design. We don't want to design that now and then not find out that we have funding for 2 years and find out we have to redesign it all over again because it took us 2 years. So it's a little bit of a moving target for that design work.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Town managers report?
Sure, I have a few things to bring up. Special town meeting opened today, and the warrant, I should say, and it closes on February 4th. A big shout out to Karen Keene and her group again, as you know, looks like we'll be looking to get 7,500 of the test kits, and we're going to have a meeting, I think tomorrow, with opera funds to make sure that we can process that through the opera money and moving forward with that. We got an email today from Maya, who's our insurance carrier that's done through the Mass Municipal Association, and our safety compliance officer, Michelle, she has received an award, or will be receiving an award from the state for her work. I'll just read it. Happy to announce that you've been chosen to receive the Maya Risk Management Award this year. You have demonstrated your dedication to the safety and the well-being of the DPW employees by providing training, inspection, and guidance. So that's pretty exciting to have one of our newer employees, Michelle Newell, who's doing our safety inspections, to get that kind of recognition statewide. Also, let's see, we received a $398,395.25 grant for complete streets, for sidewalk improvements, complete street work, and that's going to be done sidewalk gap between Plymouth and Morton Park on Billington C. So again, JB and his crew, a great grant that we have to help do some additional street improvements on Billington Street. Tiffany Parks, who does the Maya Rewards program, and she spends a lot of time harassing all of us to attend these events because they do save us money. Over the year, her hard work has resulted in a $66,234 savings in the insurance coverage we have for the various programs. She encourages or gets various town employees to attend to minimize issues like slip and falls, backhoe safety, things like that. So again, that's great that we received that kind of reduction. We received a grant from Eversource through Patrick Farrer, the energy officer. This money represents $303,000 or $310,000, and it's energy lighting efficiency to reduce the lighting cost. And it's this project is for the PCIS building. So we're going to be investing at no cost to the town $310,000 to retrofit the LED lighting out there and do some fairly significant electric saving costs through that program. And I think that's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions or comments to Lee?
Report.
I would just say it's pretty obvious you have a great staff behind you. It's you know, some of those things are pretty remarkable. For somebody who's new in this job, I'm constantly amazed at some of the things that your staff provides us in the savings to the residents of the town.
Great, great to hear.
Good to hear.
And thank you to them. Right. Moving on, there's no licenses. Administrative notes, excuse me, there's one. Oh, actually, it's two.
Vicky, did you want to do public comment?
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry. Anyone wishing to speak on a public comment, Chris? Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. Really had a couple of things I wanted to say. One is we are all in a stressful, critical situation with the pandemic and all its ramifications. Sorry to hear that people are getting up in arms about wearing masks. But then on top of that, we have our own little crisis, I think, around the departure of the town manager with these perplexing changes in the schedule and arrangements. So I'm not surprised that there's a lot of sort of suspicion and defensiveness and upset involved. It seemed to me inevitable. I hope that as soon as your executive session notes can be revealed, that will help calm things down. The other thing I wanted to say was I was distressed by your decision to revise the Zoom format to what you're using tonight, or by not allowing other people to attend in general, because I think that's an important function and right of citizens to, I mean, we all know that it's influential when 30 or 40 citizens come in on one issue or another to one of the meetings. And we can't do that with this arrangement except by asking to speak. This is one of the reasons I did it. Last night I watched for a while with the Charter Commission, and they're using a panel format, which means that essentially you have a panel, which would be you and any planned guests, and you have essentially an audience. And the audience is not on the screen ordinarily, but they can by a previous arrangement ask to speak, and then they can be brought in by the person managing the Zoom program. And I think that would be a better one. They could also be sure that you knew that they were there. If people are watching on PAC TV, you don't know you have no idea how many people or who is watching. So that
I usually check that with Chris.
Okay, well, I would, and I hope.
And I don't believe we've had any issue with that to this point.
Pardon me?
I don't believe we've had an issue with letting anyone speak to this point that I can recall.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I'm misunderstanding you, so you can make it a little clearer for me, please.
Well, yes, obviously I'm here speaking now because I asked specifically to do that. All I'm saying is if you use that format, you could have an audience that wouldn't all be on the screen all the time. And they could come in from that status and request to speak at the times when it's appropriate. And I think that would be a more participatory meeting for the citizens of the town. And that's my main point there. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Hammond, tonight, the chairman instructed Chris Bardot, when he found out that the people that were waiting that weren't allowed out couldn't hear the meeting, he told Chris to allow everybody to come in. So tonight, anybody that was there was allowed to come into the meeting. So he didn't realize that they couldn't hear. So going forward, you'll be able to get into the meeting.
Okay.
That happened tonight. Nobody was turned back from getting onto the meeting tonight because the chairman didn't realize that you couldn't hear when you're in the waiting room. You couldn't hear the meeting. So tonight, everybody that wanted to come on was on.
Well, under the
spirit of peace, I'll call back and find out about it.
Under the format that I'm talking about, they would be able to hear you and see you, but they would only be brought in specifically at the when they
At the time, that
yeah.
might be easier. I'm going to check that out. It might be
Easier for you,
easier.
I think.
Yes, absolutely.
And the Charter Commission, I thought, used it with great success. So I hope you can. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll check it out, John. Thank
And
you.
we love to have people watching us. We love it.
Mr. Hutchinson, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Quintal. I'd like to agree with John and my friend, Mr. Blitzer. I think that it ought to be open and that we ought to be able to see everybody who wants to participate. Think of the way to think of it might be as analogous to folks who want to go and be a part of your meeting in the Great Hall. So I want to show up physically and know that my presence is that you know I'm there. And you know the confusion. Maybe John had this too. I don't know, but I also listened to the Charter Commission at their meetings. And last night they didn't allow us to be seen unless we raised our hands. Now I don't know whether that. I don't know how that policy works, but it feels like there's maybe an opportunity for the selectmen to write a policy about attending, about virtual attendance at town meetings. Just to clear it up. Just a thought. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davis.
Yes, I think what John has been saying is the format he's talking about is used very often for webinars and for annual meetings. In other words, you people are the panel, the panelists, I'm sorry, and we're just the audience. And it's true, you can't see us, but you can always either raise your hand with using these different formats, or you can go into the chat so that the public can still, I mean, 100 people could be on there, but we don't all have to be seen. And I think it's something you can probably talk about with Chris Bardo. I'm sure he knows it. And there may be other people, even select people who have used that format. So I don't know. It's worth just looking at and maybe even trying to say,
I will give it
no, we didn't like it, you know.
I gave it a look. I can only tell you in this format that we use now to have 100 people, it's very difficult.
Yes, it is.
I'm having a conversation with you and somebody else should come in or somebody leaves, all of a sudden you're gone. Now I got to try to find out where, and it does make it a little more difficult, but I'll be more than happy to look at it, like I said.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment? Mr. Tavares.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that I would add to that is that, you know, I know it's unfortunate and it's cumbersome, but unfortunately this is the way we have to go. And I like the idea of the panel, kind of like the Charter Commission does, because then it's out there, but they're not crowding your screen. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's about participatory government and having citizens participate, which is what I hear you all preach a lot. So I think that looking into the panel forum, kind of like the Charter Commission does, would make it less cumbersome for you to moderate, or not moderate, but to run the meeting, to chair the meeting, but allow people to, you know, I can't, sometimes my YouTube doesn't work and I can't get on that, but I can get into this to at least watch. It's unfortunate because we can't be in person, but I don't know. I would agree with Mrs. Davis. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Okay. Moving on, there's no licenses and there's 2 administrative notes. You want to take them together or you want to take them single?
We can take them together.
I don't know if you can you?
Well, do we want to?
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah.
I want to talk to the second one, right?
Yeah,
Right, that's why I said that.
Does anybody,
so
yeah, let's do the
let's
first.
go to the first one first. All right.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
to reappoint. Do we do them separate or the whole committee?
We do the whole committee. Oh, the names listed here.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. And then the second administrative note, the board will vote to endorse the decision made by the Roads and Advisory Committee to deny the plow request for the Whispering Pines Drive and Manamet Ponds Path. Bring it out to the board for discussion or a motion, and then we'll have discussion, however you, oh, I'm sorry, Harry.
Well, I guess I'll move and then we can have discussion. If someone seconds that I move that we endorse the decision made by the Roads Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Second, discussion.
Discussion.
Mr. Helm.
Well, I decided to do a little light research on that neighborhood using the addresses of the folks who signed the request. And what I discovered was that basically 50%, and it's 11 of them, so it's hard to say 50%, but there's one kind of outlier. 50% of them, it was on the listing when they bought the house that there was an HOA. So but 50% of them, it was not on the listing. So I can't say that there was definitely disclosure for that 50%. There was disclosure to the half of them. So half of the people in that neighborhood were aware that there was supposed to be an HOA. So I question all of them not knowing, which seems to be in their statement kind of what they're telling us, is that we had no idea. And the Roads Advisory Committee is saying, whether you knew it or not, you're supposed to have one. And that HOA, per the, what is on file at the Registry of Deeds and with the town, is that it is not, the town is not responsible for snow plowing. So after doing that research and reading the materials, I'm, unfortunately, that's, they bought in an area that the town is not responsible for plowing the roads.
Mr. Blitzer?
Yeah, and I have a couple of documents here in front of me. You all should have it in your package. Patrick, I believe you got it, didn't you? You were looking for it last week? Patrick?
Yeah, it was the written portion from the Road Advisory Committee and the
criteria for the snow plowing
committee recommendation. Yeah, that and your document too. I have that here too. Yeah.
Yeah, number 6, the existence of any homeowners association and their responsibilities for roadway plowing and maintenance, any current maintenance agreements, as well as a list of any construction waiver variances granted by town boards, covenants, or individual homeowners easements shall be supplied to the committee with the snowplow fund. Number 6 is one of the criteria for not accepting snow plowing. So it's and then in the comments, DPW does not recommend because of the homeowners, they're responsible for maintenance. In Roads Advisory Committee, which I'm a member of now, same thing. It's because of the planning board conditions on file at the Plymouth Registry of Deeds. So to accept it would open up a can of worms, and right now they're recommended not accepting, and that's why we should vote to not approve it, or to approve what they've already said. So.
Anyone else? Patrick?
Yeah, and I just appreciate getting the document that had, that had the write-up on it, because that was the piece that when we first got it, it was blank. And now
Right.
we have the part that is signed and
Yep.
has the explanation there. So that satisfied when they referenced that in the memo, what I wanted to see. So I understand their recommendation now and appreciate the extra week to get that in hand.
Yep, so, yeah, that's the reason, so, anyway.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? All those in favor of the motion and the recommendation?
Aye.
Unanimous. Committee liaison updates? Mr. Helm?
I'm not exactly sure if this is where this would go, but what the heck. The Plymouth Outdoor Dining Task Force is now prepared to present what we have come up with. And if I can say so, I think that it's very impressive. And it's something that the residents of Plymouth will be very proud of. But I guess, Dick, I need to ask you so that I can, get preparations ready and get the committee prepared. With everything going on with budgets and all that stuff, is there a particular select board meeting that we could schedule this for?
I'll go over it with Chris, but we could absolutely ready to do a presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay.
Well, give it a couple weeks. I want to make sure the architects and we have all the drawings ready that I can put them up on the screen and we have the presenters ready. So, talk to
Quintel, if I could. So, Krista, we had a date. We've been talking to the chair of the committee. So, Chris, what's the date we have selected?
Oh, I'm just looking now.
Yeah, because he asked me tonight if we could set a date. So
Yeah, I had it set for the 11th, but that's next week. So you may need more time for that.
You want to set it?
You want to do it next week?
Can we set it for the 18th?
I think
Oh, the 18th is going to be
18th?
interviews.
Oh, the
You
18th.
can squeeze it in next week, Harry. How long do you think it's going to take?
It won't take long, and if we have to get
I mean,
it ready,
if it takes an hour, it takes an hour.
it won't take an hour. I just want to make sure we'll have everything ready. Let's do it next week.
Want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. You can always go back to it too. Okay.
All right, cool.
Okay, next week.
Please.
Yeah, and the
All
funding.
right, you're on.
The
All
funding,
right.
the funding source for some of that work is going to be ARPA. So the goal is to get you, we have 2 ARPA requests that you'll have. One is for the outdoor dining, and then the other one will be for the test kits. So hopefully that'll all show up for you to approve for funding. So that's the funding source.
Who's it? Blake, who's requesting the ARPA funds for the outdoor dining?
Yeah, it would be the outdoor dining committee, and you'll see the presentation. So they have a uniform decorative wood kind of railing system they want to put around each of the barriers instead of having the visibility of those plastic barriers.
Right.
And so it would be the funding needed to construct those. DPW has agreed to install them.
Yeah. Plus there's consistent vegetation and consistent lighting throughout. It's pretty, in my mind, it's pretty impressive.
Harry, one question, and I know I don't want to get ahead because I know when you come before us, we can ask questions. But participation, you think most of the businesses will participate?
Well, I think we've created a program which will be beneficial for them to participate, but whether they choose to or not is up to them. But what you'll find is we have created guidelines and a series of steps if you do not follow those guidelines. So as you may have noticed this time around, we put up Jersey barriers and they were never used, but anything like smoking lounges, the restaurants had them put up and never used them. That will not be happening this time.
Because
there was a lot of thought and a lot of effort put into creating a program that, really kept the residents and the respect that we all have for Plymouth in mind. And also this time ADA compliance throughout.
which is key. And the businesses that are open 3 days a week and those spaces sit empty, it's to me, that's unacceptable. So, that was being a member of the PGDC. We were very concerned about those spaces going to waste. So anyway.
Yeah, then there was a representative of the
Tatum.
PGC
I know.
on the committee.
You got some
Also,
good committee.
It was a good committee. So
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other updates? Old business? Letters? New business? Okay, I hate to be the spoiler, but I have some. As we wrap up this year, we all had goals last year. We were moving on them all. And I would just like to ask the members to please rethink of going into the new year being in January of what some of the goals are or some of the things you think need a little tuning up. So when the new town manager does hit the town, she or he can hit it with a foresight of what we're looking for and along with their thoughts also. I'm just going to touch base with you some of the things that I wrote down today. I had a meeting with Patrick Farah, proved to be very good. And I know Patrick will be very proud of me because I went through my whole packet on the cans and sustainable Plymouth. And I watched the videos, I Googled everything. So I'm doing my homework. And I think the town really needs to kick it up a few notches. And I know that's your thing, Patrick. So I look forward and hope that you can guide it. And even I like to sit with you and go over some of the, I have some questions. I mean, I've learned all about, solar power, the batteries, how they're put together, the different kinds. So just for myself, but I think we need to really present this to the community in at least the green part of it. We're not bad, but we're not very good either. We need to kick it up a notch through our committees, and I'm sure we get our new person on board and some of Patrick's plan, but we need to get that front and forward going. So JB, I've asked for updates on water and sewer. As some of you may or may not know, we had some serious issues with some water in the past, and I want to make sure that the town lays out, if you will, I'm going to use the word master plan, but has it on the screen of where the next wells might or could be, and pass that along and share it with the planning board. So as these projects come before them, I think we need to get all on the same page. And forgive me, Lee, if we already are, but I don't know that, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm hearing that there's a piece of whole tech that could be a well, then somebody's saying no, and then somebody's saying yes. So I think we need to take a look at that and lay it out. We're going to be getting a cemetery update. And the reason you haven't got it yet is because we've been looking at parcels of land, and they're going to come in. Ken King is going to come in with our committee and make some recommendations. And the board can do is, but it could be a serious problem if it's not addressed. There's not a whole lot of room left. So the town, us as a town, have to move forward and get that going. While we're at it, we don't want to forget Parks and Forestry or Whole Tech. We also got a placeholder on the town meeting for a pilot agreement. Now, there's no one saying there's going to be a pilot agreement, but we put it there just to have it. We'll start on negotiations. I think Melissa set it up for this coming week, right, Lee? I think it's coming up this week. And I could be wrong. I got to look at it and see, but it's on the front burner. We got to pick up the pace with that. I talked to Mr. O'Brien at the county yesterday. He has a check for the town of Plymouth for us for $2 million. If they can't get over there, I understand COVID. I'll gladly swing by and pick it up because I know once Lynn Barrett hears that, she's going to tell me to. So if that's the case, I'm going to swing by, and we thank them for their good work and, of course, the money. And he also told me, Lee, that I think he said Thursday, they're purchasing 200,000 COVID test kits. So I asked him, how that would be distributed. So you might want to follow up with Tom and see how that's going to all play out. And I just want to bring up to you, Lee, that we passed a policy, and I don't know the proper term right now at the moment, on committee members' behavior. I know I have some letters here in my makeshift office that other people have made complaints, and I want to have you start the process to look into it and guide us as to how we do that, whether it's a hearing or whatever. But I want to get that moving. It will no longer be tolerated. And the last thing, I'd like to say a thank you to Mr. Frank Gomes, who's on the job very early in the morning. Some mornings 2:30 in the morning, and making sure this community is up to par. He goes above and beyond. It's amazing how many meetings I've been at, and I hear, well, ask Frank Gomes. Well, ask Frank Gomes. So I just want to say thank you to him, and a lot of the town employees do a good job. Let's face it. So, and I got a lot of feedback, and I don't know if any other members did, when we were discussing the discipline or the policy for committee members. I mean, everybody thought we were going to start firing people, which is not the case. We appreciate all the volunteers in the community, but we also want you to be respectful at your meetings and treat your other members that way. So I don't want anybody running off, oh, we're gonna work at conservation, we're gonna do, this has nothing to do with that. Okay, you will all see it's pretty much related to what I have in front of me at the moment. So I just want to make that clear. Wish the board a happy new year and everybody watching, and we'll see you next week. And Betty, if you could go over the updated goal list with Patrick to what's so far so good, and then we'll add anything that anybody brings to the table. And any members that want things scheduled, just please ask, because it's all our agenda. Okay.
And actually, so just so the people at home know that the majority of the goals that we set several months ago are completed. So, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we got the grant writer. Town meeting was very good to us. Yep. So, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Thank you for watching. Have a good week, everybody.